Have you ever wondered why some people effortlessly attract admiration while others seem invisible no matter how hard they try? Today, we're unlocking the secret ingredients behind genuine respect, the kind you can't fake or force. Forget quick fixes and superficial tactics. This is about lasting change that improves every relationship in your life, from your career to your closest friendships. You'll discover subtle yet powerful shifts you can make right now to transform the way people perceive and interact with you. Stay tuned until the end, because the twist I'm revealing will change your perspective entirely. And hey, if you love deep dives into real-life wisdom that truly matters, hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. Respect, at its core, is not something you can simply demand from the world. It's not a prize that others bestow upon you merely because you exist, nor is it a commodity you can trade for favors or good deeds. Instead, genuine respect emerges organically when you live in accordance with values like integrity, self-discipline, and personal accountability. Throughout history and across numerous cultures, respect has remained a pivotal concept that underscores strong moral character, emotional maturity, and social competence. Even so, many individuals find themselves frustrated by the lack of respect they receive even when they believe they have done everything right. This disconnect happens when people mistake the external signs of respect for the inward essence of it. They might try to force others to admire them through intimidation or by doing endless favors in hopes of a return. However, this approach rarely brings about true respect, because respect is less about how you can manipulate others' perceptions and more about how you manage your own habits and mindset. To understand why true respect can be so elusive, it helps to look at the set of habits we carry around with us every day. Habits, whether constructive or destructive, reveal who we really are when no one is watching. They form the foundation of our character and define how consistently we behave across various situations. You can tell people all day long that they should take you seriously, but if your habits do not align with a life of self-respect, your words will have little weight. People instinctively observe behaviors, patterns, and reactions. They notice things such as punctuality, personal presentation, tone of voice, level of effort, and emotional equilibrium. When you exhibit negative or self-sabotaging behaviors consistently, you broadcast to the world that you are not in control of your life, and that is precisely what causes others to lose faith in you. The real challenge is that most of these detrimental habits, like making excuses, being lazy, neglecting personal appearance, ignoring boundaries, taking credit for others' work, or being emotionally reactive, are deeply ingrained. We might have developed them as coping mechanisms, or they might be inherited from the environment we grew up in. Whatever their origin, if we truly want to earn respect, both from ourselves and from the people around us, these habits have to be acknowledged and removed. It's not enough to simply say, "I want to be respected." You have to demonstrate through tangible action and a willingness to change that you are someone who is worthy of it. Real respect is built layer by layer. It starts with how you show up for yourself, your self-talk, your self-discipline, and your commitment to personal growth. Then it extends to how you engage with others, acknowledging their needs, recognizing their boundaries, and showing empathy without losing yourself. Many of us learned the hard way that nice words and false humility can only go so far. If your day-to-day habits contradict the image of a respectful individual, people will quickly sense the dissonance. The following discussion delves into 6 destructive habits that must be removed if you want to stop undermining your own credibility. In this, Part 1, we'll take a closer look at the first 2 of these behaviors, always making excuses and succumbing to laziness, and explore why eliminating them is the critical first step toward becoming someone truly worthy of respect. Before focusing on the specific habits that might be holding you back, It's crucial to gain a deeper understanding of why respect is so intrinsically tied to self-worth. Essentially, people around you pick up on the signals you send about how you view yourself. These signals aren't merely in your words, they show up in how you carry yourself, how you respond to challenges, and whether your actions consistently align with the standards you claim to uphold. When you fail to respect yourself by letting yourself off the hook, avoiding accountability, or engaging in self-sabotaging behaviors, others see this as an indication that you lack the very foundation upon which respect is built. This reality became painfully clear for me at one point in my journey. I can recall times when I was desperate to make people like me or think highly of me. I tried to be agreeable, always available, and endlessly accommodating. In my mind, I was the epitome of kindness and approachability. What I failed to recognize was that my fear of disappointing others led me to compromise my own boundaries and standards. By saying yes to everything, despite my genuine capabilities or even my schedule, I inadvertently signaled a lack of self-respect. Far from earning me the admiration I craved, it generated a subtle disdain. People started to see me as someone they could rely on to do the grunt work without ever really acknowledging my efforts. Eventually, I noticed a pattern. Even if I worked overtime, bent over backward to fix others' mistakes, or took on responsibilities that weren't mine, the respect I expected never materialized. In hindsight, it was evident that my own habits and mindset were driving this outcome. When you don't respect your own limits or expect accountability from yourself, you allow negative habits like chronic excuse-making or avoiding important tasks to creep in. Over time, these behaviors become your norm, and people relate to you based on that norm. If you're constantly late to meetings, people won't trust you with key responsibilities. If you frequently blame external factors for your failures, others begin to see you as someone who won't take ownership when it truly counts. Both scenarios lead to a loss of esteem that's difficult to reverse. At the same time, it's important to realize that earning respect is a continuous process, not a one-time event. If you decide to remove these destructive habits from your life, there's a need for consistency and patience. Everyone, including yourself, needs time to notice the positive changes. Just because you decided today never to make an excuse again doesn't mean everyone will instantly forget your track record of shrugging off blame. But if you maintain this new standard over weeks, months, and eventually years, a different narrative will form around you, one that people can trust, admire, and respect. With that in mind, the quest for respect begins by taking a clear-eyed look at the behaviors that are preventing you from reaching your full potential. Part 1 specifically tackles two big ones that often slip under the radar because they are so commonplace: always making excuses and being lazy. These two habits, especially if left unchecked, will sabotage your credibility in ways both obvious and subtle. Let's start with the first, excuse-making, and see how it undermines the very qualities that garner real respect. Excuse-making is deceptively destructive. On the surface, it can seem harmless. After all, everyone has reasons for why certain things didn't get done or why a particular deadline was missed. We tell ourselves that we're simply explaining circumstances, whether it's bad traffic, a personal emergency, or a lack of resources. However, beneath these seemingly benign justifications, a corrosive mindset often lurks. Every time you opt for an excuse, you distance yourself from accountability. You may feel momentary relief by sidestepping blame, but in the eyes of others, you come across as someone unwilling to own up to your responsibilities. Over time, people begin to see you as unreliable, and reliability is a cornerstone of respect. I vividly remember a period in my life when I was perpetually late, and I always felt compelled to explain away the lateness. Traffic was horrible, I would say, or I didn't get the meeting reminder, or I didn't realize how long it would take to finish my previous task. These reasons were all rooted in elements of truth but were still excuses. Despite believing I was simply being transparent, the individuals waiting on me were more focused on the end result. I was late. Again. Over time, no matter how valid or creative my excuses were, people concluded that I was someone who didn't respect their time, and in turn, they lost respect for me. What we often fail to realize is that each excuse we make carries an implicit message. I am not in control of my life. It suggests that circumstances dictate your actions rather than your own decisions and preparedness. If you consistently oversleep and blame your alarm, you are effectively saying you have no power to set or respect a schedule. If you consistently deliver late work and blame a coworker for not giving you information, you are signaling that your own sense of responsibility isn't strong enough to mitigate obstacles. The flip side of this is that people are surprisingly more empathetic and forgiving when you own your shortcomings. Instead of blaming traffic, imagine saying, "I apologize for being late. I should have planned better." That single statement is an admission of responsibility. It tells people that you respect their time and that you see yourself as the primary actor in your own life. This willingness to take the heat in the moment demonstrates a level of maturity and confidence that is far more likely to garner respect than hiding behind a laundry list of reasons. Removing the habit of making excuses starts with heightened self-awareness. The moment you feel the urge to give a reason for a slip-up, pause. Ask yourself whether this reason is truly an unavoidable cause or if it's just a shield to deflect blame. If it's the latter, consider how much more powerful it would be to simply admit your lapse. Over time, you'll notice a shift in how people respond to you. They'll start viewing you as someone who may not be perfect but is honest and dependable. That shift is a fundamental step toward becoming someone who earns and keeps real respect. Transforming your mindset around excuses isn't just a matter of changing your external behavior. It's also about recognizing the internal narratives that keep you stuck. Often, we craft excuses because we feel threatened. We worry that admitting fault will damage our reputation or diminish our standing with others. But ironically, the opposite is true. Consistent excuse-making signals to others that you are scared to face the consequences of your actions, suggesting a deeper lack of self-confidence. This can become a vicious cycle. The more you give excuses, the more you undermine your confidence, which then makes you more prone to deliver even more excuses. To break this cycle, you need to adopt a mindset of personal accountability. Personal accountability means that regardless of the circumstances, you accept that you have a role in the outcome. This doesn't imply that every setback is solely your fault. Life does happen, and unexpected obstacles do arise. The critical difference lies in how you respond. Do you dwell on the obstacle as the end-all be-all reason you failed, or do you acknowledge it and then refocus on what you can do differently next time? When people see that you approach problems with solutions instead of excuses, they start to trust your capability and sense of responsibility. That trust is an essential building block of respect. Furthermore, stepping away from excuse-making liberates you from a victim mentality. The victim mentality says life is happening to you rather than through you. It makes your success contingent on external factors, leaving you feeling powerless to affect change. Once you replace, "I'm late because of traffic," with, "I should have planned better for traffic," you reclaim control. You're no longer the hapless victim of the morning commute. You're the individual who can leave earlier, check traffic reports, or prepare alternative routes. That sense of empowerment is not only attractive to others, it also boosts your self-esteem, forming a positive feedback loop that fosters better habits. From a broader perspective, eliminating excuses improves your relationships, personal, professional, and beyond. Coworkers become more willing to collaborate with you because they trust you'll handle your share of the workload without deflecting blame. Friends and family find you more dependable, recognizing that you won't let them down at the first sign of trouble. Even potential mentors or higher-ups notice your willingness to learn from mistakes, making them more inclined to invest in your growth. All of these shifts occur because you've stopped hiding behind excuses and started presenting yourself as a person who values responsibility and growth over saving face in the short term. Finally, always remember that kicking the habit of excuse-making isn't about perfection. You're still going to slip up occasionally. The critical measure is how you handle those stumbles. When you do falter, own it immediately. Offer a sincere apology if needed. Outline how you plan to prevent a similar issue in the future, and then follow through. Over time, this consistent demonstration of accountability transforms your image in people's eyes and, most importantly, transforms your relationship with yourself. By owning every part of your journey, the good, the bad, and the messy, you're laying down the groundwork for authentic respect to flourish. If making excuses erodes respect because it shows a lack of accountability, being lazy attacks respect from a different angle. It signals a lack of ambition, drive, and self-discipline. Laziness in this sense is not just about needing rest or taking breaks. Everyone needs downtime. The problem arises when your general approach to tasks, whether personal goals or professional responsibilities, is marked by chronic procrastination, minimal effort, and a habit of cutting corners. People often mistake laziness for a purely external problem. I just don't like this job, or I'm not motivated by these tasks. But at its root, laziness reflects your internal priorities and willingness to step up to challenges. In the professional world, team environments depend on each member pulling their weight. When you repeatedly show that you'll only do the bare minimum, if that, you are telling your coworkers and superiors that you are not invested in collective success. This can create resentment within a team. While everyone else is striving to meet deadlines or improve the project, the lazy individual's half-hearted work drags overall performance down. From a broader perspective, once people label you as lazy, it's extremely difficult to shake that reputation. Even if you later decide to exert more effort, you might have to work twice as hard just to break free from the negative perceptions you've created. From a personal standpoint, laziness also stunts your own growth. If you adopt a lazy approach, you'll likely settle for mediocrity in your skills and knowledge. Rather than seeking new challenges and learning opportunities, you remain stagnant. This stagnant energy seeps into every aspect of life, your personal goals, your relationships, and your aspirations. When other people notice you're content to stay in a state of minimal progress, they start to wonder if you're capable of anything more. This doubt gradually diminishes respect, as people look for signs that you value self-improvement and the pursuit of excellence, even at a moderate level. I recall a time when I coasted on my natural talents, especially in group settings. Because I could accomplish basic tasks relatively quickly, I figured that was enough. I failed to push myself, assuming that if others were satisfied with my minimal input, I was doing okay. Over time, I discovered that okay isn't what garners admiration or respect. It's what keeps you invisible or taken for granted. Additionally, colleagues began noticing that I didn't go above and beyond. They started viewing me as someone who would never volunteer for challenging projects or put in extra effort to refine the final outcome. By the time I realized how damaging this perception was, significant harm had already been done to my professional relationships. What's more, laziness often correlates with missed opportunities. You may have dreams or big ideas about where you want to go in life, but if your daily actions don't match those ambitions, people see a contradiction between your words and your reality. The gap between potential and action is where laziness thrives. To close that gap, you have to develop a sense of urgency about your own life. Whether it's setting concrete goals, adhering to a routine, or continuously upskilling, the counterbalance to laziness is proactive commitment. When you choose proactivity over passivity, you indicate to the world, and to yourself, that you believe in your own capacity to achieve and excel. This fundamental belief is what attracts the respect you're looking for. Addressing laziness involves a mix of self-awareness and practical strategies. First, you need to clarify your why, the deeper reason that compels you to take action. Without a strong motivating factor, it's easy to slip into complacency. That why doesn't have to be grand or world-changing. It can be as simple as wanting to support your family, striving to be a role model for your children, or aspiring to master a particular skill set. Once you have clarity on what drives you, it becomes harder to justify inaction. You have a personal yardstick against which you measure each decision, and you'll recognize more quickly when you're letting yourself down. Next, develop concrete routines and accountability structures. Laziness often thrives in environments that lack structure and consequences. If no one ever calls you out, you may continually default to doing the bare minimum. Therefore, set clear, measurable goals for your day, week, or month. Use calendars, reminders, or productivity apps to keep track of your progress. Additionally, find an accountability partner, a friend, colleague, or mentor who can check in with you. When you know that someone else is aware of your targets and will follow up, you're less likely to brush off your responsibilities. Over time, these external frameworks can help you develop stronger internal discipline. Still, it's also important to address the potential root causes of laziness. Some individuals exhibit lazy behaviors due to fear of failure. They'd rather not try than try and risk falling short. Others may be overwhelmed by the magnitude of their goals, leading them to shut down. If these deeper psychological elements are at play, you might benefit from breaking tasks into smaller, more manageable steps, or even seeking professional guidance, such as coaching or therapy, to work through underlying anxieties or mental health concerns. Sometimes what looks like laziness is actually depression or burnout, in which case you need a different strategy than just self-discipline alone. From an interpersonal perspective, once you begin to transform your lazy tendencies, people will take notice, both positively and skeptically. Don't be surprised if your first attempts at increasing your workload or improving the quality of your output are met with mild surprise or even doubt. Remember, you're challenging an image that others have already formed of you. Persist. Consistency over time is what shifts a reputation from lazy to go-getter. As your improved effort level becomes a pattern rather than a one-off event, colleagues and friends will gradually revise their perceptions. They'll see that you are committed and reliable, and that shift naturally fosters respect. In many ways, breaking free from laziness is parallel to rejecting a victim mentality. When you're lazy, you're effectively surrendering your power to shape your life. You're letting external forces like a comfortable couch, a distracting smartphone, or a simpler alternative decide how you spend your time. Reclaiming your agency involves a conscious decision to act, even when you don't feel like it. Over time, this stance of personal responsibility and determination reverberates through your social circles. People begin to see you as someone who takes life seriously, and that's when the doors to genuine respect swing open. As we conclude Part 1, it's essential to reflect on how both excuse-making and laziness feed off each other, potentially creating a downward spiral that erodes respect from multiple angles. When you habitually make excuses, you deflect blame onto external circumstances, which often rationalizes your lack of effort. Simultaneously, if you're lazy, you're more likely to fall into the excuse trap to justify why things weren't done on time or to the best of your ability. Together, they form a toxic loop that keeps you stagnant and undermines your standing in every sphere of life, professional, social, or personal. Cutting out these two habits requires commitment and vulnerability. It requires admitting where you've been going wrong and demonstrating, through consistent action, that you're willing to make things right. For some, this process is akin to peeling away layers of self-deception. Maybe you've convinced yourself that you're not really lazy, just too busy, or that your excuses are perfectly valid each time. One of the hardest steps is acknowledging that you may be the common denominator in all these patterns. But once you face that truth, you open the door to profound transformation. Moreover, the rewards of discarding these habits extend far beyond simply gaining respect from others. You also develop a more robust sense of self. You become someone who can trust your own words because you're no longer using them as a shield against accountability or a reason to remain idle. This clarity and self-perception is empowering. When you know you can rely on yourself, you'll be far less dependent on the external validation you once sought so desperately. It's a paradox of sorts. By giving up trying to appear flawless through excuses and half measures, you end up embodying the qualities, like reliability and diligence, that lead people to genuinely respect you. This wraps up our exploration of the first two habits that corrode respect. To continue on this journey, you'll want to make a conscious effort to monitor your actions in real time. Each day, observe how quickly you jump to explain away a shortcoming or how eagerly you choose comfort over productivity. Start small. Even a single instance of catching yourself before you provide an excuse or deciding to put in that extra effort on a task can have a cumulative effect over weeks and months. Over time, these seemingly minor shifts in behavior will add up, fundamentally altering how people perceive and respond to you. In the next part, we'll delve deeper into other damaging patterns, specifically neglecting personal appearance and ignoring boundaries. These might seem unrelated to excuses and laziness, but as you'll see, they tie into the broader theme of self-respect and mindful living. By understanding how each habit chips away at your credibility, you can take decisive steps to eliminate these pitfalls and replace them with behaviors that command genuine, lasting respect. Now, take a moment to comment on these ideas or reflect on how they resonate with your personal experiences. Before we move on to Part 2. Before we explore the next two habits, neglecting personal appearance and ignoring boundaries, let's take a brief moment to reflect on what we covered in Part 1. We uncovered how perpetual excuse-making signals a lack of accountability and how persistent laziness indicates an unwillingness to commit energy and effort to one's goals. Both behaviors ultimately cause people to doubt our reliability and question our sincerity. The unifying theme in these first two habits is the importance of self-discipline. The discipline to own up to our actions, or lack thereof, and the discipline to push ourselves beyond the initial resistance that leads to stagnation. Now we shift our attention to two other seemingly distinct habits. The first, neglecting your personal appearance, may strike some as superficial. After all, isn't it shallow or judgmental to base respect on how someone looks? However, the key insight here is that taking care of your appearance is less about vanity and more about self-respect and situational awareness. The second habit, ignoring boundaries, refers not only to interpersonal relationships but also to how we navigate shared spaces and collective norms. Respect for boundaries, whether they're emotional, physical, or social, is one of the bedrocks of trust and mutual respect. Together, these habits reveal more subtle layers of how we present ourselves to the world. Even if you rarely make excuses or rarely act lazily, you could still be silently sabotaging your credibility by showing up disheveled to important events or bulldozing over other people's preferences and comfort zones. These issues might not generate immediate backlash, but over time they lead to a social stigma that can be difficult to overcome. People might not confront you directly about your appearance or call you out for boundary violations, but they will internalize these observations. Gradually, you'll see shifts in how they treat you or whether they include you in meaningful opportunities. Another unifying aspect is that these next habits can often be overlooked or dismissed with rationalizations. Perhaps you believe that outward appearance shouldn't matter because your work output is what truly counts. Or maybe you think that pushing others to engage more or accept your viewpoints is just a sign of caring or being passionate. The problem is that neither approach reflects true respect for yourself or others. Neglecting appearance can indicate you haven't invested in presenting the best version of yourself, while ignoring boundaries can suggest you don't value the autonomy or comfort of those around you. As you read through the following paragraphs, ask yourself, have I ever downplayed the significance of my personal appearance, convincing myself that it's what's inside that really matters? Have I ever assumed that boundary setting was someone else's job, and that I had the right to impose my help, opinions, or presence whenever I felt like it? Honest introspection is vital. Just like with the first two habits, recognizing the role you play in these behaviors is the precursor to changing them. With that in mind, let's take a deeper dive into the habit of neglecting your personal appearance and explore why it has such a strong bearing on how you're perceived and ultimately respected by others. It's often said that you only have one chance to make a first impression. While this statement might sound cliched, it captures a fundamental truth about human interaction. People form opinions about you, whether consciously or unconsciously, based on your appearance, posture, and general presentation long before you have the opportunity to speak. This isn't about adhering to unrealistic beauty standards or wearing expensive brands. It's about basic self-presentation that communicates self-respect, attention to detail, and consideration for the environment or context you're in. Consider the difference between two individuals at a professional gathering. The first person arrives in clothing that fits the setting, appears well-groomed, and stands with a confident posture. The second arrives with wrinkled clothes, uncombed hair, and an air of disinterest. Even without conversing with either individual, observers are likely to perceive the first person as more competent or reliable. The psychological underpinnings of this phenomenon are deep-rooted in how humans have evolved to read social cues. When someone takes care of their appearance, it suggests they have the capability and willingness to manage other areas of their life as well. Conversely, consistent neglect in this area can unintentionally signal a broader lack of control or engagement with the world around them. Beyond initial impressions, personal appearance also impacts how you feel about yourself. Putting effort into how you look, showering, dressing in a clean outfit, ensuring you're generally presentable, can boost self-confidence. This isn't a superficial boost, it's a reflection of self-investment. When you invest time and energy into your appearance, you send a message to your subconscious mind that you are worth the effort. Over time, this can translate into greater self-assuredness, which in turn influences how you carry yourself in social and professional settings. Conversely, regularly neglecting your appearance can feed into a spiral of low self-esteem, reinforcing feelings of not being good enough or deserving of attention. I recall a specific instance where I showed up to an important function dressed so casually that I stood out, and not in a good way. At the time, I thought I was being authentic, refusing to conform to what I saw as a stuffy dress code. However, the effect was that I appeared disengaged and disrespectful to the event's hosts. The subtle shift in how people interacted with me was palpable. While no one openly criticized me, I could see that I wasn't included in key conversations. A few colleagues even mentioned they were surprised I chose such an outfit. Their polite remarks barely concealed the underlying disapproval. That day, I learned the hard lesson that personal appearance isn't just about me. It's also about respecting the context and the people who have organized or are attending an event. Ultimately, neglecting your appearance creates dissonance in your relationships. Friends and family might grow concerned about your well-being if your neglect is chronic and severe. Coworkers might question your professionalism and reliability. Even in casual social settings, people may assume you care little about their company if you habitually show up looking like you made no effort at all. In each of these scenarios, the takeaway is consistent. Looking after your appearance is a sign of healthy self-respect and awareness of social decorum, both of which are cornerstones for gaining and keeping respect from others. If neglecting personal appearance is holding you back, the path to improvement might be simpler than you think. Start by assessing what presentation means in the specific environments you inhabit: professional, social, and personal. If you work in a corporate setting, for instance, consider investing in a few basic, well-fitted outfits that adhere to the dress code. Cleanliness is paramount. Wrinkled clothes, unkempt hair, or poor hygiene send negative signals that can overshadow even your best efforts at competence. If you're not sure how to proceed, don't hesitate to ask for help. Seek advice from a friend known for their good style sense, or watch tutorials on grooming and wardrobe basics. The goal isn't to reinvent yourself into someone you're not. It's to elevate your existing self to a level that communicates care and conscientiousness. From a psychological standpoint, taking small daily steps to care for your appearance can be transformative. For example, develop a morning routine that includes grooming, dressing purposefully, and a quick personal check-in. Ask yourself, do I look ready to handle the day's challenges? Am I dressed appropriately for the tasks and interactions ahead? Answering these questions helps you approach the day with intentionality. If you notice a recurring pattern, like consistently wearing wrinkled shirts because you don't like ironing, maybe invest in a steamer or choose clothing materials that are less prone to creasing. By tackling these small obstacles, you reduce friction in your routine and eliminate excuses for presenting yourself poorly. Moreover, the habit of caring for your appearance also overlaps with mental discipline. Just as you discipline your mind to avoid excuses or to push through laziness, you can also discipline your routines around self-presentation. This fosters a holistic approach to self-improvement. The more areas of your life you manage intentionally, the more self-respect you build. Over time, this holistic discipline seeps into your work ethic, your relationships, and your personal goals. You'll likely find that the confidence you gain from being well-groomed can energize your motivation to excel in other areas. Another crucial aspect is context sensitivity. Dressing appropriately for a given situation shows respect for the people hosting or participating in that environment. Showing up to a wedding in shorts and a t-shirt not only disrespects the hosts, but also makes you appear socially unaware. On the flip side, overdressing for a casual outing might make you seem disconnected from the group's vibe. Strive for a balanced understanding of the norms and expectations. If you're unsure, err on the side of being slightly more polished. People rarely fault someone for making an effort to appear presentable. Lastly, never underestimate the subtle link between outward appearance and inward transformation. When you look in the mirror and see someone who is put together, you start believing in your capacity to manage other areas of your life. This mental shift is powerful. It aligns with the philosophy that external order can help facilitate internal order. The process doesn't require adopting extravagant spending habits or chasing high fashion. It simply requires a consistent commitment to present yourself in a way that conveys your self-respect. Once you do that, you'll find that others increasingly respect you in return, often more than you might have anticipated. While personal appearance deals with how you respect yourself, respecting boundaries centers on how you respect others. Boundaries can take many forms: emotional, physical, and situational, and crossing them can alienate people in ways both subtle and overt. Imagine a coworker who overshares personal details in a professional setting, or a friend who continually pushes their opinions on others without invitation. Initially, people might overlook these infractions out of politeness or sympathy. However, over time, boundary-ignoring behaviors create tension, resentment, and a distinct lack of trust. Once trust is compromised, so is respect. Ignoring boundaries also includes disregarding people's personal space or time. Have you ever had someone knock on your door late at night for a non-urgent matter, or barrage you with messages when you clearly signaled you needed downtime? Such actions may stem from a desire to connect or from genuine concern, but they fail to respect the fact that everyone has the right to their own comfort zones and their own schedules. In friendships and romantic relationships, boundary violations can be even more damaging, as they often feel like direct betrayals of trust or insensitivity to emotional needs. If you make a habit of ignoring or bulldozing these limits, you risk being seen as someone who cares more about personal gratification or control than mutual respect. I recall one friendship that nearly crumbled because I assumed being helpful justified my incessant need to be involved in my friend's challenges. Whenever he was dealing with personal issues, I would offer unsolicited advice, check in constantly, and push him to act according to my suggestions. My intentions were good. I wanted him to overcome his difficulties. However, I failed to realize that he needed time, space, and the autonomy to handle his problems in his own way. Over time, he became distant, not because he didn't value my friendship, but because he felt smothered and disrespected. When he finally told me, "I just need you to respect my boundaries and let me handle this," I had a moment of stark realization. In my desire to help, I had overlooked his fundamental need for self-agency. The deeper issue here is that ignoring boundaries often reflects an unintentional sense of entitlement. We may feel entitled to someone's time, attention, or emotional bandwidth, forgetting that respect is rooted in reciprocal understanding. Alternatively, some people ignore boundaries out of insecurity, fearing that if they don't remain constantly present, they'll be forgotten or undervalued. Either way, the result is a net loss of respect, because the very behavior intended to keep someone close drives them away. Professionally, boundary violations can manifest in micromanaging or over-communicating. A boss who never allows employees to make independent decisions shows a lack of respect for their autonomy. A colleague who frequently interrupts or unilaterally reschedules team meetings fails to consider others' workloads or constraints. In both cases, the boundary of professional respect is crossed, harming team cohesion and morale. Over time, these repeated violations become major trust issues and can drastically hinder productivity. In essence, ignoring boundaries isn't just about being overbearing or invasive. It's an imbalance that stems from failing to see others as fully autonomous. Once you recognize that each person has a right to their own space and decisions, you begin to engage with them from a standpoint of respect and empathy. This shift not only improves your relationships, but also elevates you in the eyes of others, who will see you as someone who genuinely values mutual respect. Cultivating a habit of respecting boundaries starts with self-reflection. Ask yourself why you might be crossing boundaries in the first place. Is it because you believe your input is indispensable? Or do you struggle with anxiety that makes you seek constant reassurance from others? Identifying the root cause can help you address the behavior at its source. For instance, if you're often anxious and need frequent contact, you might work on techniques to self-soothe or structure your day in a way that reduces the urge to latch onto others for emotional support. Recognizing your own emotional triggers is a powerful step in preventing boundary violations because it fosters a sense of personal responsibility. Next, develop active listening skills. When someone communicates a boundary, whether explicitly or implicitly, pay close attention. This might include statements like, "I really need some alone time right now," or nonverbal cues such as stepping away when you approach too closely. Respecting these signals might be uncomfortable if you're accustomed to pushing through, but it's a vital step in rebuilding or maintaining trust. In a work environment, active listening could be as simple as noticing when a coworker says they are busy and not pressing them for extra favors. In a personal context, it might mean honoring a friend's request not to bring up certain topics they find triggering. Each instance of respecting someone's boundary is an investment in a relationship built on mutual regard. Another important facet of boundary-respecting behavior is learning to set and honor your own boundaries. People who struggle with respecting others' boundaries often struggle with defining their own as well. You might be overly accommodating, never saying no, and thus projecting that same intrusion onto others because you assume they operate similarly. Or you might have difficulty articulating your comfort zones, leading you to inadvertently ignore others' comfort zones. By clarifying and communicating your own boundaries, you not only protect your emotional and mental space, but also model the kind of behavior you expect in return. It's also crucial to remember that boundaries aren't static. They can change based on context. The amount of personal information someone is willing to share can vary from a casual gathering to a more intimate setting. The level of physical closeness acceptable can differ depending on cultural background or personal history. Being attuned to these situational nuances shows emotional intelligence and respect. Rather than imposing a one-size-fits-all approach to relationships, adopt a mindset of continuous learning and observation. If you notice someone withdrawing or becoming tense, politely ask if you're overstepping. This small act can go a long way in conveying genuine respect. Finally, prepare yourself for potential backlash when you start enforcing or respecting boundaries in a new way. People who are accustomed to your old habits might be surprised, confused, or even resistant. This is especially true if you were someone who always said yes and suddenly you start saying no. Stay consistent, clarify why you're changing, and focus on the goal of healthier interactions. Over time, those around you will adapt, and the relationships that remain will likely be stronger and more genuine. Plus, you'll find that as you cultivate a more respectful approach to boundaries, you naturally gravitate toward environments and people that share your mindset, creating a support system that further reinforces mutual respect. Both neglecting personal appearance and ignoring boundaries might initially appear unconnected to the concepts of laziness and excuse-making, but when you take a step back, you see they all tie into the larger theme of self-respect and empathy for others. Whether it's failing to groom yourself properly, not adhering to a dress code, or consistently crashing through someone's personal limits, these behaviors communicate a lack of consideration. People pick up on the sense that you're not fully engaged in the social contract, where each individual strives to present their best self and respect the autonomy and comfort of others. Moreover, these habits can interact in damaging ways. A person who is habitually lazy might also neglect personal appearance, compounding the negative impression they make in professional and social circles. Someone who consistently makes excuses might also disregard boundaries because they're used to shifting blame and not recognizing the role of personal responsibility in interpersonal dynamics. Over time, these layers of destructive habits can create a reputation that's incredibly difficult to overturn. One where you're seen as someone who lacks discipline, self-awareness, and respect for the people around you. It's also essential to recognize that boundary setting and personal presentation both require a level of mindfulness. Mindfulness in this context means being aware of your surroundings, the social norms in play, and the nuances of each relationship you're a part of. When you're mindful, you notice if an event is formal or casual and dress accordingly. You're aware of a friend's emotional signals and respect their request for space. This attentiveness not only prevents you from making social missteps but also helps you respond more appropriately to changing circumstances. In the long run, such mindfulness becomes second nature, making you someone others seek out for harmonious, respectful interactions. Another subtle point is that respecting boundaries doesn't mean building walls or becoming distant. It's about understanding the appropriate level of closeness given the context. Sometimes respecting someone's boundary might mean giving them a shoulder to cry on if they explicitly ask for emotional support. Other times it might mean backing off if they prefer to handle things privately. The key is to let them lead the way regarding their own limits. When you adopt this posture, you become a person people trust to handle their vulnerabilities or to leave them be when that's what they need. Lastly, these two habits, neglecting appearance and ignoring boundaries, can breed contempt not only from others but also from yourself. If you repeatedly fail to meet basic social expectations for appearance, you might begin to see yourself as incapable or unworthy, fueling further neglect. If you continuously disregard boundaries, you may struggle with guilt or confusion about why relationships deteriorate. Both dynamics drain your self-esteem, creating an internal environment where self-destructive behaviors flourish. Conversely, by committing to these self-improvements, caring for how you present yourself and honoring others' personal limits, you set yourself on a path where self-respect and mutual respect reinforce each other. It's this virtuous cycle that ultimately helps you stand out as someone people admire and trust. As we conclude part 2, keep in mind the overarching message. Respect starts from within, but is demonstrated through outward actions. In the case of personal appearance, that outward action involves meticulous self-care, appropriate dress, and an attention to detail that signals you value yourself and the event or setting you're part of. For boundaries, the outward action involves recognizing and honoring others' comfort zones. In both instances, you're actively showing the world, and yourself, that you consider respect to be non-negotiable. Over time, these practices become deeply ingrained habits that shape your identity and enhance your relationships. The journey to earn genuine respect is cumulative. By now you've seen how 4 destructive habits, making excuses, being lazy, neglecting your appearance, and ignoring boundaries, can chip away at how others perceive you and how you perceive yourself. You've also learned that the antidote involves a conscious decision to live more mindfully, responsibly, and empathetically. There is no shortcut or quick fix. Each habit requires a personal commitment to consistent improvement. But with every small success, arriving on time with no excuse, putting in that extra effort at work, dressing thoughtfully for an important meeting, or gracefully stepping back when someone needs space, you're laying another brick in the foundation of your self-respect and external credibility. In the upcoming Part 3, we'll examine the final 2 toxic habits, taking credit for others' work and being emotionally reactive, and then tie together all 6 habits in a comprehensive conclusion. While these last 2 might appear different in nature from what we've already discussed, they share the same core issue: a lack of integrity and self-control. Taking credit for someone else's contribution undermines the trust people place in you, while allowing your emotions to dictate your actions can destroy the respect you've painstakingly built. Together, we'll explore practical steps for handling these pitfalls so you can further strengthen your personal ethos and reinforce your position as someone worthy of deep, lasting respect. Now, take a moment to reflect and comment on your insights or experiences regarding personal appearance and boundary setting. Have you witnessed any transformations in how people treat you once you started dressing more intentionally or respecting boundaries more conscientiously? Or perhaps you've observed these shifts in someone else. Sharing those observations can provide clarity and motivation as we move forward. With that, we'll transition to Part 3, where we address the remaining habits that stand between you and the respect you seek. As we step into Part 3, let's briefly recap the journey so far. Parts 1 and 2 have examined 4 key habits that erode respect: making excuses, being lazy, neglecting personal appearance, and ignoring boundaries. Each of these behaviors undermines trust and credibility in different ways, yet they're all connected to the larger themes of self-discipline, self-awareness, and empathy. By now, you should see that respect isn't rooted in any single grand gesture. It's an aggregate of daily decisions that either align with or deviate from principles of integrity and consideration. Whether you're chronically late, perpetually crossing personal lines, or letting your appearance slip, these consistent lapses become a lens through which people view you. In this final segment, we turn our attention to 2 last habits that can be particularly damaging to your reputation: taking credit for others' work and being emotionally reactive. At first glance, these habits might not seem as commonplace as making excuses or being lazy, but in many work and social environments they rear their heads more often than you might think. Additionally, they both strike at the heart of integrity. One by dishonestly claiming a contribution you didn't earn, and the other by allowing your emotional state to dictate your words and actions without restraint. In both cases, the resulting breach of trust can be severe. Taking credit for someone else's effort is often rationalized with subtle forms of self-justification, such as, "Well, I contributed some ideas, so it's basically mine too," or "I need to showcase my value to my boss." Meanwhile, being emotionally reactive can be excused with statements like, "I'm just a passionate person," or "they provoked me." While these rationalizations might offer a quick sense of relief or even triumph, they inevitably erode the foundational qualities that inspire others to respect you, namely honesty, fairness, composure, and responsibility. Understanding these final habits is crucial because they can dismantle your reputation faster than the others. Where a messy appearance or occasional laziness might be forgiven over time, stealing credit or losing your temper in a public setting can leave a lasting stain on how people perceive you. Recovery from such incidents often requires concerted effort, genuine apologies, and a demonstrable change in behavior. The upside, however, is that once you commit to purging these habits, the positive impact on your respectability can be profound. People universally admire individuals who are both humble about their achievements and calm under pressure. In the paragraphs that follow, we'll dissect these 2 habits in detail, looking at how they develop, what short-term temptations they fulfill, and why they're so destructive in the long run. We'll then discuss practical steps you can take to overcome them. Finally, we'll wrap everything up in a comprehensive conclusion that ties together all 6 toxic habits and reiterates the overarching path to genuine respect: consistent self-improvement guided by integrity, empathy, and a willingness to own your impact on the world around you. Few actions in a group setting, be it in the workplace, a volunteer organization, or even a circle of friends, can destroy respect faster than claiming or implying ownership of someone else's hard-earned contributions. People invest time, energy, and creativity into their projects, and the recognition they receive is a form of validation and reward. When you step in and either subtly or overtly present their work as your own, you're robbing them of that recognition. In the short term, you might enjoy the temporary glow of praise, but in the long run, you sow seeds of distrust and resentment that will almost certainly overshadow any momentary accolades. This habit can manifest in various ways. You might take full credit publicly during a team presentation, or you may forget to mention the other contributors when reporting results to superiors. Sometimes it's more nuanced. Perhaps you let colleagues believe your role was more substantial than it really was, or you fail to correct someone who praises you for something a teammate actually did. No matter the form it takes, the underlying message is the same. You're willing to sacrifice fairness for personal gain. And once people realize that, because in reality, the truth almost always comes out, they'll think twice about partnering with you on future projects. They'll question your integrity at every turn. I've personally witnessed a scenario where someone's career prospects dimmed overnight due to taking credit for a coworker's effort. Initially, the offender seemed to bask in the spotlight. Management praised him, and he even received a bonus. But when the coworker discovered the misattribution, word spread quickly within the department. The entire team felt betrayed, not just because of the injustice, but also because it created an atmosphere where collaboration felt unsafe. Nobody wanted to share ideas openly, fearing they might be hijacked or misrepresented. In the end, management was forced to intervene, the bonus was rescinded, and the individual's reputation was tarnished to the point where few trusted or respected him anymore. The damage was done. Beyond the ethical breach, taking credit for others' work signals a lack of self-confidence. It implies that you don't believe your authentic contributions are sufficient to stand on their own. You might be thinking, if I don't boost my achievements artificially, no one will notice me. Yet the irony is that genuine effort, even if modest, earns far more long-lasting respect than artificial hype built on someone else's accomplishments. When people see that you consistently give credit to collaborators, they're more likely to trust you and want to work with you. They recognize that you value fairness and that you're a secure enough person to share the limelight. Overcoming this habit involves several key steps. First, acknowledge that you've done it, or are tempted to do it. Then, commit to full transparency. If someone praises you for something you didn't do, graciously direct the accolade to the rightful contributor. If you played a partial role, be clear about what you did and didn't do. This honesty, while it might seem to dampen your personal glory in the moment, ultimately builds an image of reliability and fairness. The next time you achieve something genuinely praiseworthy, people will celebrate your success without suspicion, thus reinforcing the respect you've worked so hard to earn. As you rid yourself of the impulse to claim undue credit, you'll find that collaboration becomes a much more positive and efficient experience. Team members who once guarded their ideas will be more open in sharing them, trusting that you won't seize their work for personal gain. This heightened trust can lead to improved collective outcomes, as a free flow of information and constructive feedback enriches the overall quality of projects. In a way, abstaining from credit stealing is a cornerstone of strong leadership. Leaders who champion the achievements of their team create an environment where everyone feels valued, and that sense of value fuels innovation. If you're worried about losing out on recognition you feel you deserve, consider that genuine praise is far more potent than manipulated acclaim. Suppose you consistently adopt a stance of integrity, emphasizing the contributions of each member involved. In that case, people who matter, supervisors, potential mentors, or influential peers, will notice your honesty. Over time, you become the person known for fair dealing, which often translates into better opportunities, because managers and executives want people they can trust in key roles. Even if the payoff isn't immediate, the long-term benefits of being seen as ethical and supportive often surpass any short-lived advantage from taking credit you haven't earned. There's also a powerful internal benefit. When you rely on honesty, you build self-respect. Each time you openly acknowledge someone else's contribution, you're affirming your own sense of worth. You're stating, in effect, that your identity and value aren't contingent on hijacking accolades. Instead, you trust that your legitimate strengths and contributions will shine through in due time. This self-assured approach helps you step out of the scarcity mindset, the fear that there's not enough success or recognition to go around, and into a mindset of abundance and collective achievement. Such a shift fundamentally enhances your emotional well-being, as you're no longer burdened by the guilt or fear of being exposed as a fraud. Still, changing this habit requires vigilance. old tendencies might resurface, especially in high-pressure situations where you feel the need to prove yourself quickly. It can be tempting to take shortcuts or allow others to believe an embellished story. The antidote is to pause and remind yourself of your broader goals: sustained respect, genuine self-confidence, and authentic relationship. By consistently aligning your actions with these deeper objectives, you reinforce a pattern of ethical behavior that eventually becomes second nature. Ultimately, what might start as a single act of giving credit where it's due can become a defining characteristic. People will gravitate toward you not only because you're fair, but because this fairness hints at deeper qualities like empathy, kindness, and moral fortitude. These are the traits that form the bedrock of real respect, a respect that isn't transactional or conditional, but rather rooted in admiration for who you fundamentally are. That's the kind of respect that lasts, and it's well worth giving up the hollow satisfaction of claiming someone else's work as your own. The final habit we'll explore is emotional reactivity, a tendency to respond to situations primarily through the lens of heightened emotions rather than measured thought. Emotional reactivity takes many forms: shouting when frustrated, hurling insults during disagreements, or even withdrawing into cold silence at the slightest provocation. At its core, it signals a lack of self-regulation, revealing that your emotions have more control over you than you have over them. While we're all human and bound to feel anger, sadness, or hurt, the key differentiator is how we choose to act on these feelings. Being emotionally reactive undermines respect for two main reasons. First, it's seen as a form of volatility. People can't predict how you'll handle stress or conflict, so they begin to walk on eggshells around you. This erodes their trust because they never know if a minor critique or inconvenient circumstance might trigger an outburst. Second, high emotional reactivity often comes across as immaturity. In professional or even personal contexts, we generally admire those who can maintain composure under pressure. Their calm demeanor suggests strength, stability, and reliability. Reacting with undue anger or despair implies the opposite, that your emotional state can derail rational thought and fair judgment. I recall a personal anecdote where my emotional reactivity nearly cost me a valuable friendship. A close friend and I had a disagreement over a relatively minor issue. Instead of calmly discussing our differences, I let frustration take over and fired off a series of harsh text messages in the heat of the moment. My friend, taken aback by the intensity of my reaction, grew distant. It took a genuine apology and a series of calm, honest conversations to begin mending the relationship. Even then, I could sense there was a lingering wariness on his part, an uncertainty about whether I might snap again over some future trivial problem. That experience made it painfully clear how a single emotional outburst can unravel months or even years of built trust. From a broader perspective, emotional reactivity hinders personal growth. When you lash out, you often fail to process the underlying issues at play, depriving yourself of the chance to solve the real problem. Instead of addressing, for example, chronic stress or unspoken resentments, the focus shifts to dealing with the fallout of your reaction, mending relationships, explaining your behavior, or even facing disciplinary action in a work setting. Over time, these repeated flare-ups can compound, leading to a reputation as someone who's hard to work with or easily set off. Yet it's possible to reform this habit by cultivating emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence involves recognizing your feelings as they arise, understanding the triggers behind them, and choosing an appropriate response rather than a knee-jerk reaction. Techniques like mindfulness meditation, journaling, and controlled breathing can help. You can also benefit from pausing in contentious situations, taking a moment to ask yourself, what outcome do I really want here? If the outcome is a resolution or maintaining a good relationship, You'll be motivated to respond calmly rather than react in anger. Gradually, these small choices coalesce into a temperament that people respect and appreciate because they can trust you not to let emotions override reason. Emotional control is not about suppressing your feelings or pretending negative emotions don't exist. Rather, it's about channeling them in a constructive way. Anger, for example, can be a powerful motivator if it's rooted in a genuine concern for justice or improvement. The difference lies in how you use that anger. Do you let it boil over in personal attacks and raised voices, or do you harness it to initiate meaningful change or address a long-standing issue with clarity and passion? Another angle to consider is the long-term relational impact of emotional reactivity. In romantic relationships, for instance, repeated emotional outbursts can create a cycle of volatility that leads to resentment and, potentially, separation. In friendships, it can make others feel they have to tiptoe around certain topics. In professional settings, being prone to intense emotional responses can derail your career growth. Supervisors might overlook you for leadership positions because they doubt your ability to handle high-stress scenarios calmly. Coworkers, meanwhile, may keep their distance, afraid that simple disagreements could escalate. In each scenario, respect, the glue that holds collaborative and harmonious relationships together, deteriorates because it depends on stability and mutual trust. One particularly insidious form of emotional reactivity is passive aggressiveness. Instead of yelling or confrontations, a person might use sarcasm, backhanded compliments, or silent treatment. While less overtly explosive, passive aggression can be just as corrosive to respect. It still signals an inability to address issues candidly, and over time, it undermines open communication. People around you may feel uncertain about your true feelings, and the tension that builds up can eventually manifest in more serious conflicts. To break free from emotional reactivity, it helps to practice consistent emotional hygiene. Think of your emotional health the same way you think of physical health, something that needs routine maintenance and care. This may include regular stress management practices like exercise or creative hobbies, and maintaining supportive social connections where you can share feelings in a healthy way. Therapy or counseling can offer specialized techniques for dealing with chronic issues such as anger or anxiety. In the moment of a potential outburst, train yourself to take a breath or a short walk before responding. This brief pause can significantly reduce the intensity of your reaction, allowing you to respond with intention. Ultimately, the transformation from being emotionally reactive to emotionally responsible is a journey that offers both personal liberation and social dividends. You'll likely feel more in control of your life and more at peace with yourself. Others will notice the change in how you handle disagreements or unexpected stressors, and their trust in you will grow. Respect often blossoms in the presence of such consistent emotional maturity, reinforcing a cycle where stability and calm become defining features of your personal and professional persona. Now that we've addressed all 6 toxic habits, making excuses, being lazy, neglecting personal appearance, ignoring boundaries, taking credit for others' work, and being emotionally reactive, it's time to see how they interconnect and what can be learned from viewing them as a whole. Each habit in its own way undermines one or more key dimensions of respect: accountability, self-discipline, empathy, honesty, and emotional stability. If left unchecked, they form a patchwork of behaviors that can steadily corrode your reputation and self-esteem. Yet the good news is that uprooting these habits often sets off a positive chain reaction. For instance, when you stop making excuses, you naturally become more accountable. That newfound accountability might encourage you to address laziness, as you'll recognize you can't keep blaming circumstances for lackluster performance. Similarly, once you start taking pride in your appearance, You cultivate a sense of self-worth that leads you to better respect your own and others' boundaries. Addressing boundary issues, in turn, can make you more mindful of how your actions, such as taking credit for someone else's work, affect the people around you. And when you learn to manage emotional reactivity, you build stronger relationships that foster genuine collaboration. Each effort complements and fortifies the others, ultimately making you a stronger, more trustworthy individual. Another overarching lesson is that respect is never just about how people see you, it's also about how you see yourself. Habits like laziness and neglecting appearance often stem from a subconscious belief that you're not worth the effort, or that cutting corners is enough. Taking credit for others' work or ignoring boundaries might reflect insecurities about your own abilities or fear of rejection. Emotional reactivity can arise from feeling threatened or undervalued. Addressing each of these roots involves cultivating a healthier, more confident self-concept. As you incrementally remove these negative patterns, you replace them with positive self-beliefs and disciplined behaviors. The end result is not just external respect, but an internal sense of dignity and agency. The practical steps toward eliminating these habits vary, but share common themes: awareness, accountability, incremental change, and consistent effort. You start by identifying the triggers or rationale behind the behavior. Then, you set clear intentions and boundaries for yourself. For example, deciding that you'll own up whenever you're late instead of spinning an excuse, or promising to give credit explicitly to collaborators in every group task. Over time, you establish a track record of better choices, which shifts both external perceptions and your internal narrative. Gradually, people see you less as the person who's always late or who steals ideas, and more as the reliable team player or considerate friend. Crucially, this transformation requires patience. Old habits don't vanish overnight, and you may stumble along the way. You might catch yourself making an excuse in a moment of stress or reacting poorly to criticism after a hard day. The key is not to view these slip-ups as proof that you haven't changed, but to use them as learning moments to refine your approach. Each stumble is an opportunity to reaffirm your commitment to growth. Eventually, the new habits become second nature, woven seamlessly into your daily life. Respect, fundamentally, is the natural result of living in alignment with principles that uplift both yourself and those around you. It isn't something you can demand or purchase. It's an organic outcome of the type of person you become through your daily actions. When you strip away toxic habits like excuse-making, laziness, poor self-presentation, boundary violations, credit stealing, and emotional outbursts, you free up immense emotional and mental bandwidth to focus on authenticity and purposeful living. You begin to show others, without needing to shout it from the rooftops, that you're someone who values integrity, empathy, and self-control. The real beauty of this transformation is that it builds upon itself. As people observe your consistent accountability, diligence, and respect for their time and space, they respond in kind, offering more trust, support, and loyalty. Doors that were previously closed may start to open as colleagues recommend you for new responsibilities or leadership roles. Friends invite you into deeper levels of connection, and even casual acquaintances sense your genuine character. Meanwhile, your internal world stabilizes. You feel more confident in your abilities and judgments, less plagued by guilt or fear of being found out, and increasingly motivated to keep growing. This isn't to suggest that life becomes a perfect utopia once these habits are gone. Challenges, conflicts, and disappointments will still arise. However, you'll be better equipped to handle them gracefully. Instead of making excuses for a missed deadline, you'll own it and offer a solution. Rather than procrastinating on a difficult task, you'll tackle it head-on or seek help as needed. In moments of emotional tension, you'll pause and choose a response that keeps communication open and respectful. Instead of infringing on someone's boundary, you'll recognize their autonomy and find more constructive ways to support or connect with them. And when a team project succeeds, you'll proudly highlight everyone's contributions, knowing that you're secure enough in your own role not to inflate your part at someone else's expense. Ultimately, the journey to earning genuine respect is one of self-refinement. You become aware of the behaviors that undermine you and make a steadfast commitment to change them, consistently and transparently. Every step forward helps you align more closely with the values you claim to hold, transforming you into a person whose actions match their words. This alignment is precisely what inspires respect. People trust consistency. They admire self-awareness. They look up to those who lead by example rather than empty declarations. As your life becomes an authentic testament to your principles, the respect you desire naturally follows, both from others and, most importantly, from yourself. In closing, these 6 habits serve as a roadmap of what to avoid if your aim is to be taken seriously and warmly regarded by the people in your life. Removing them isn't easy. It demands introspection, humility, and a dedication to self-improvement. But the payoff is transformative. By freeing yourself from these corrosive behaviors, you unlock a version of yourself that commands respect, not through force or manipulation, but through undeniable personal integrity. Now, you're encouraged to share your reflections on all 6 habits, which resonated with you most deeply, and what are your strategies for letting go of them. Through honest dialogue and steady effort, you can chart a course toward a life defined by the respect you truly deserve. Looking back, embracing these lessons has been more than transformative. It's been life-changing. By eliminating habits like making excuses, ignoring boundaries, or losing control of emotions, you open the doors to deeper trust, stronger connections, and real influence. It's incredible how small adjustments can drastically upgrade your life. Remember, true respect isn't given, it's built, day by day through integrity, reliability, and self-awareness. Now, I'm curious to hear from you. Which part of this video resonated most? And what's the first habit you'll tackle to earn the respect you truly deserve? Share your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe to keep these empowering conversations going. Let's inspire each other to become our absolute best.